Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and hello everyone. So today we are going to present about three contemporary issues in strategic management accounting. The three issues are algorithmic and dynamic pricing, geopolitical uncertainty, and the customer data-driven profitability analysis. So before we begin, let us introduce our group members first. My name is Muhammad Haziq Haikal bin Kasim, and my ID number is AM250501872.
My name is Umar Abdul Qayyum bin Omar and my ID number is AM25050192447.
My name is Nafar Amali binti Ahmad Fauzani. My ID number is AM250501941.
My name is Nur Aina Nazira binti Norman. My ID is AM25050199190. Okay, now I will explain and describe the three selected challenges in strategic management accounting. The first issue is algorithmic pricing and dynamic pricing. So, algorithmic pricing refers to the use of algorithm and data to determine and adjust the price of product or service. Meanwhile, dynamic pricing means the price can change continuously according to the market conditions. So, this change can be influenced by factors such as demand, supply, competitors, and customer behavior. Therefore, organization may face challenges in evaluating profitability and making strategic pricing decisions when price change frequently. For the second issue, which is geopolitical uncertainty and strategic cost management. Geopolitical uncertainty refers to uncertainty caused by events such as wars, political tensions, and international conflicts. So, this event can affect organization by creating change in strategic costs and business conditions. For an example, international conflict may disrupt business activities and make costs more difficult to predict and manage. Therefore, the main challenge is how organizations can manage their strategic costs and make appropriate business decisions when geopolitical conditions are uncertain. So the third issue, which is customer data-driven profitability analysis. So, this refers to the use of extensive customer data to analyze and determine the profitability of customer or the customer groups. Organization can use customer information to understand customer behavior and identify which customers are more or less profitable. So, however, the main challenge is to use customer data effectively without compromising customer privacy and data trust. In summary, the three selected challenges focus on change price, uncertainty geopolitical conditions, and the increased use of customer data. This issue create new challenge for organization when making strategic decision in today's business environment. Alright, now we move into the second part, which is I will explain why these three issues have become strategically important to organization in the 21st century. So first, algorithmic and dynamic pricing. This is become strategically important because of the market conditions can change very quickly. So, with the use of digital technology and data, organization can respond faster to change in demand, competition, and customer behavior. This allows companies to adjust their pricing strategy and remain competitive in the rapidly changing market. We go to the next, which is geopolitical uncertainty. So this becomes strategically important because of organizations are increasingly connected to global market and international supply chains. Events such as wars, political tensions, and international conflict can affect business conditions and costs. This organization need to consider the uncertainties when making long-term strategic plans and business decisions. And last but not least, the customer data-driven profitability analysis has become strategically important because of the digital business can collect and generate large amount of customer data. This data also can help the organization understand the customer behavior and identify profitability customer segment. It can support more informed and data-driven strategic decisions. However, the organization must also consider the customer's privacy and trust when using these informations. For overall, these three issues are strategically important because of organization today operate in an environment that is rapidly changing, globally connected, and increasingly data-driven.
So now I will explain to you guys on how these three topics can affect strategic management accounting. So in this presentation, I will focus on three areas, which is cost management, decision making, and strategic planning. So let's move to the first part, which is cost management. So for algorithmic and dynamic pricing, the main effect is difficulty in maintaining a stable profit margins. So this happen because of the prices keep changing based on the market conditions. And then we have the main effect for geopolitical uncertainty, which is supply chain disruption and higher unpredictable costs. For example, war and political conflict can increase the transportation costs and also the material costs for the company to incur. And then for customer data profitability analysis, the main effect is complex customer cost allocations. So this is because the company needs to identify the actual cost of serving for every different customer. So for overall, this issue make the cost management becomes more difficult and unpredictable. So now we are going to the next focus, which is how this issue affect on decision making. So for algorithmic and dynamic pricing, the first effect is faster decision making because company can use real time data from the market. However, this also increase the complexity of determining the optimal price or the best selling price, because the manager needs to balance between the price and the profitability. So next we have for geopolitical uncertainty. The effect is it increase the uncertainty in sourcing and investment decisions. For examples, manager may need to decide or company may need to decide whether to change the supplier from the overseas supplier to the local, or just find another supplier just because of the war or political conflict. And last but not least is for customer data profitability analysis. It helps to identify the most profitability customer and segment. So this help the company to decide which customer or which segment the company should focus on. So for overall, this issue make decision making more data driven, but also becomes more complex to the company. So now we are on the last focus, which is how this issue affect on strategic planning. So for algorithmic and dynamic pricing, the main effect is it can make long-term revenue and cost forecasting becomes more difficult. So this is because the market condition and the customer demands can change quickly and rapidly. Next, we have for geopolitical uncertainty. So for company, they may need alternative plans for unexpected disruptions. For example, they can prepare alternative supplier if their main supplier is affected by war or political conflict, which can affect the company's production and transportation costs. And lastly, for customer data driven profitability analysis, it helps identify the profitable customer and segments. So this help the company to decide which customer groups to focus on for the future growth. So for overall, this issue require company to make their strategic planning becomes more flexible and adaptable.
For this part, I will explain a real-world example of algorithmic pricing and dynamic pricing, which is used by Grab. I think most of us have experienced this before. For example, we check the same Grab ride at different times, but the fare can be different. So why does this happen? Grab changed their fares based on real-time demand and supply. Factors such as Rush hour, rain, holiday, and major event can increase their ride demand. For example, during Friday evenings rush hour, there may be many passengers but fewer drivers. So, Grab increase their dynamic price multiplier. This can encourage more drivers to accept bookings and move to high demand areas. From a cost perspective, Grab can earn higher revenue per ride, but it also needs data and forecasting to make this pricing decision. There are also some consequences. Higher fare during peak periods may cause customers to choose alternative, while low fares may reduce driver availability and lead to longer waiting times. Therefore, Grab use dynamic pricing to balance demand and supply using real-time data and algorithms. Okay, for our real-world example for geopolitical uncertainty event, we choose IKEA. In 2022, the Russia-Ukraine war created major supply chain and trading disruption for businesses operations internationally. IKEA was also affected because the conflict made it more difficult and expensive to manage their supply chain. The main impact was on cost. IKEA faced higher raw material costs, higher transportation and logistic costs, and overall supply chain inefficiencies. This eventually increased IKEA's operating costs. For example, if IKEA normally spend 100 ringgit to transport and produce a product, but the cost of material and transportation increases, the total cost may become 130 ringgit. IKEA then has to decide how to manage this additional cost. In terms of strategic decision, IKEA paused their import and export activities in Russia and Belarus. It also paused their retail operation and scaled down some business operations in the affected markets. As costs continued to rise, IKEA also had to increase some product price. However, this decision also created several consequences. IKEA could face lower profit margin because its operating cost increased. Higher product price could also affect customers' purchasing decision. At the same time, IKEA experienced a loss of business in the affected markets. So, this example shows that geopolitical uncertainty is not only a political issue, it can directly affect a company's supply chain, cost, pricing decision, profitability, and overall business performance. For our last real-world example, we choose Netflix. First, for the customer data event, Netflix used customer viewing data such as watch history, watch time, and search behavior to identify customer preference and viewing patterns. For the impact on cost, Netflix needs to spend more on data analytics, technology and infrastructure, as well as content production and licensing. Personalization also requires continuous data analysis. Next, for the strategy decision, Netflix used this data to provide personalized recommendation and customer segmentation. Netflix also use customer data to decide what content to invest in, with the main focus on customer retention. However, there are several consequences if the data is not analyzed effectively. Netflix may face higher customer churn, lower customer engagement, and poor content investment decision. It may also lead to ineffective marketing and reduced profitability. So, this example show that customer data can help Netflix understand customer and make better business decision, but the data needs to be analyzed effectively to maintain customer engagement and profitability.
Hello everyone. Today I'm going to walk you through three massive disruption forces changing the business landscape right now, which is algorithmic dynamic pricing, geopolitical instability, and the ethical dilemma of big data analytics. As university students, we often look at accounting as just backward-looking financial reporting. But today we are going to act as strategic management consultants. I will show you how we can deploy advanced strategic management accounting or SMA framework to help modern firms turn these three operational nightmares into distinct competitive advantage. Let's break them down one by one. Let's start with our first challenge, strategic cost management in a changing business environment, specifically the rise of algorithmic and dynamic pricing. Think about e-commerce giants like Amazon or ride-sharing app like Uber. Their AI algorithm alter price continuously, sometimes thousands of times a day, based on real-time competitive data, weather, and consumer demands. Here is an academic problem. Traditional management accounting rely heavily on static budgeting and variance analysis. We set a standard selling price, a standard cost, and we measure the variance. But when your selling price changing every single minute, the short-term profit become an unstable moving target. How do management accountants evaluate their product profitability or make long-term strategic decisions when the revenue foundation is constantly shifting? To solve this, we must look at life cycle costing combined with ABC, activity-based costing, instead of panicking over hourly or daily price drop driven by an aggressive AI algorithms. Life cycle costing forces the firm to aggregate and track all costs and revenue across a product's entire lifespan, from initial R&D right down to final disposals. By backing this up with ABC, activity-based costing, we map out our exact granularly cost to serve per transactions. Once we know our absolute operational floor cost, we can hardcore a price floor directly into the pricing algorithms. This ensures that no matter how aggressively the AI slashes price to beat out our competitor, it will never cross below our true cost threshold, effectively protecting our long-term corporate bottom line. Our second focus area addresses geopolitical and global strategic risks. We are living in an era of intense macroeconomic volatility. Sudden international conflict, regional trade war, and political tension can instantly paralyze international shifting lane and global supply chains. For a business, this results in skyrocketing freight costs, overnight tariff spike, and catastrophic raw material shortage. In our general business classes, we learn about the Pastel framework to identify these macro threats. But as management accountants, our job is to quantify into dollars and cents. When a geopolitical crisis hits, a traditional, rigid annual budget becomes completely obsolete. Therefore, we propose a strategic pivot towards scenario planning integrated with ERM, enterprise risk management. Management accountants must move away from strategic single number projection and instead build dynamics. Multi-tiered financial model represent three phases. First, an optimistic scenario, a pessimistic scenario, and lastly, a most likely scenario. By running strategic variance analysis across three models, we can structurally stress test our cost resilience. For instance, we can mathematically calculate the financial impact of shifting from a cheap, high-risk overseas supplier to more expensive, nearshore backup supplier before a political conflict breaks out. This transforms the financial team from a reactive department that report bad news into a proactive unit that strategically cushions the firm against global shocks. Finally, let's tackle the intersection of customer, competition, and business model, focusing on customer data-driven profitability analysis. Today's company capture astronomical amount of consumer data, tracking everything from click-through rate and browsing history to purchase frequencies. Naturally, marketing and finance team want to feed this big data into customer profitability analysis, or CPA, to figure out exactly which specific customer segment generate high profit margin and which one are draining resources. But here is the massive catch. Data scraping can easily cross ethical boundaries. If a company mishandles sensitive consumer information, it faces severe regulatory fines under law like GDPR, alongside total destruction of customer trust and brand reputations. How do we exact deep profitability insight without compromise data privacy? The solution lies in expanding our accounting metric using the balance scorecard framework. We cannot view a customer solely as a short-term financial metric. Under the customer and internal business process perspective of the scorecard, we must introduce non-financial, qualitative key performance indicators, such as data privacy compliance rate and customer trust index score, and review them right alongside traditional customer lifetime value. Operationally, instead of tracking highly exposed individual-level data, management accountants should analyze anonymized customer cohort, grouping user by aggregate behavior. This allows the finance team to capture the macro profitability trend required from higher-level business strategy while maintaining a bulletproof ethical data posture that preserves consumer goodwill. To conclude, the modern business environment demands that management accountants look far beyond traditional ledger book and short-term financial statement. By integrating life cycle costing, scenario planning, and ethical balance scorecard, we provide organizations with the agility to survive pricing war, global disruption, and data governance challenge. That's all for me and my team. Thank you very much for your time today.